Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Dickinson family. From the outside, the Dickinson family appeared perfect. They had everything needed for happiness, a loving mother and a devoted father who was willing to do anything for his family's well-being. Although they lived together in a small unit, they harbored many dark secrets that would surprise an outsider. For years, the Dickinson family faced deep-rooted issues that ultimately resulted in brutal murders. This tragic event took place in September 2021. One significant factor that contributed to this horrific outcome was depression, which can be devastating. Today, we will share one of the most heartbreaking stories from the criminal world. Lauren Dickinson, who lived in South Africa. She had a difficult childhood that made it hard for her to connect with teachers and other children. As a result, she often felt isolated and was frequently excluded from holidays and birthday celebrations. This experience contributed to mental health issues that began during her teenage years. Lauren is very anxious and struggles to control her emotions, always seeing threats in everyday situations. Despite her difficulties, she has had a passion for medicine since she was a child. After finishing school, she went to university and eventually became a general practitioner. In the following years, while working, Lauren met Graham, an orthopedic doctor, and they began dating. Despite their different medical specializations, they quickly developed a close bond and fell in love. Graham was outgoing and sociable, which complemented Lauren's more reserved nature. Their relationship seemed harmonious as they balanced each other's weaknesses. With Graham's influence, Lauren became more cheerful and open. They got married in May 2006. At that time, they lived in Pretoria, South Africa, where they built a house on nearly a hectare of land. The house had 4 bedrooms, a gym, a swimming pool. As they started their married life, Lauren shifted her career focus to gynecology and neurological diseases. However, almost from the beginning of her attempts to get pregnant, she decided to put her career on hold to have children. In 2012, Lauren returned to work at the medical center, but she was no longer a practicing physician. Instead, she became a part-time manager and her husband's assistant. The couple faced challenges conceiving due to health issues. Despite these difficulties, they were eager to have children. In 2013, they sought help from fertility specialists. After successful treatment, they welcomed a baby girl named Sarah, but she was born prematurely at 18 weeks. Sadly, Sarah did not survive. The loss was a shock to Lauren, who grieved every day for the next 2 months. The couple continued to consult with fertility specialists but continued to face challenges conceiving. Lauren underwent 17 rounds of IVF, often with low success rates. They eventually decided to use donor eggs and their first daughter, Leanne, was born. The family was very anxious during the pregnancy. Lauren feared another negative outcome and the possibility of losing the baby again. After Leanne was born, Lauren suffered from mental health issues. In 2015, doctors diagnosed her with anxiety, postpartum depression, and major depressive disorder when Leanne was just 18 months old. In response to the situation, Graham took a leave of absence to care for their daughter, and other family members stepped in to help. Following the doctor's advice, Lauren managed her illness with medication. Despite the challenges, the couple remained hopeful about having a second child, and after a few years, Lauren became pregnant again. An ultrasound revealed that she was expecting twins, which excited the parents as their family was set to grow. However, during the examination, they learned that one of the girls had a cleft palate, which caused Lauren significant anxiety. Fortunately, it was later discovered that the condition was not as serious as initially thought, which brought relief to Lauren's family. In 2018, twins Maya and Carla were born earlier than expected when they were in their 5th month. A successful surgery to correct the birth defect was performed. The family handled the ordeal well, After the surgery, Lauren and Graham decided to hire a nanny to help care for the family. The issues surrounding the birth left Lauren feeling anxious and compounded by panic attacks. Her husband Graham described her as an extremely anxious mother, constantly worrying about their children. Lauren was overprotective, often watching their every move, which irritated the kids. Despite these challenges, they managed to overcome many of the difficulties. The Dickinson family was relatively well off, allowing them to hire a maid, gardener, and nanny to help ease the stress on Lauren, who struggled with her mental health. By 2020, the Dickinson family had sold their house and land and moved abroad. They chose to rent a comfortable apartment. This new living situation has significantly improved their family relationships. For the first time in 10 years, Lauren stopped taking antidepressants. By March 2021, she was off all medications and had good mental health. This positive change inspired her to start doing CrossFit at least 3 times a week to stay in shape. In addition, she overcame her eating disorder. This change gave her a more positive outlook on life. Graham noticed positive changes in Lauren and was relieved that she seemed to have overcome her previous health problems. However, their happiness did not last long. By June 2021, Lauren's depression had returned. As a result, Lauren decided to see her psychiatrist again, who prescribed her antidepressants after she described feeling depressed and isolated. The Dickinson family was in a difficult situation. Graham was often home because he did not work, and the children became very attached to him, always wanting him around. As a result, Lauren felt left out and she often argued with her children, who preferred to be with their father. Although they appeared to be a happy family on the surface, things were actually very tense and could explode at any moment. In July 2021, South Africa experienced a series of riots that heightened Lauren's anxiety. The violent protests triggered panic within her family, prompting them to quickly decide to move to New Zealand, which they saw as a quieter and safer place. This move was also strategic, as Graham's parents lived there. However, their hopes were met with numerous challenges. Immigrating under such circumstances carried the risk of being denied a residence permit due to chronic illness or health conditions. To hide her struggles from the authorities, Lauren stopped taking her antidepressants shortly before the move. Her psychiatrist had told her that she was stable and no longer needed medication. Nevertheless, the pressure of the emigration process caused Lauren significant stress, worsened by her insomnia. She was only getting 2 hours of sleep each night because of the increased workload. Before the move, she began taking another medication in August 2021. The Dickinson family left South Africa on August 2nd. Lauren later described the trip as one of the most difficult times of her life, filled with anxiety about their future in New Zealand. Upon arriving in New Zealand, they settled in Timaru, a quiet town of about 30,000. The family's struggles continued. Their living conditions in New Zealand were not much better than in South Africa, with frequent power outages. In addition, Graham had to return to work earlier than expected, adding to the Dickinson family's stress. Graham started working at a hospital in Timaru and started his shift. Lauren hoped that they would have more time to deal with the challenges of moving house and adjusting to a new. Lauren felt overwhelmed with family issues and was left to care for 3 young children on her own without any support. On the appointed day, the Dickinson family went to the immigration office and were selected as potential citizens, while many other families faced rejection. Their application was accepted and they were told to wait for a response. The couple then went to a local Christian school to enroll their child in kindergarten. Graham noticed that during this time, Lauren seemed particularly sad, as if a dark cloud was hanging over her. She seemed far from the cheerful person who shared her life on social media. Even the smallest setback would send her spiraling deeper into depression. During this challenging period, Lauren kept in touch with her new friend Letitia through social media. She attempted to call Letitia, who had recently moved, to invite her to dinner, but her messages went unanswered. Meanwhile, Lauren and her spouse were looking for a rental property, but all the houses within their budget were in poor condition. They were temporarily staying in a house provided by the hospital, which only added to Lauren's stress as she was already feeling overwhelmed. However, on the night of September 14, 2021, Lauren had trouble sleeping. The next day, she had to take Maya and Carla to kindergarten and take Leanne to school. The morning was lively as the children, excited about their early rise and packing, chose their outfits without noticing their Lauren's fatigue. After dropping them off at school, Lauren returned home and lay down to rest. At 10:47 a.m., she received a photo from her kindergarten teacher showing her twins eating lunch at their table. Then Lauren cleaned the house, organizing her belongings because her family had just moved here. After running errands all day, Lauren picked up the girls from daycare and school around 3 p.m. and took them to the playground. Later, at home, Carla threw a tantrum because she missed their dad, who was at work. The other twin, Maya, had recently fallen out of bed and hurt her stitches. The girls cried so much that Lauren felt like a bad mother, trying to comfort them when they ignored her attempts to comfort them. Lauren cooked chicken nuggets for the children, but they were not satisfied with the meal. This led to a breaking point for her. Feeling overwhelmed, Lauren bathed the children and put them to bed around 6 p.m. Although she received several messages from friends in South Africa, she did not have time to reply to all of them. Graham returned home from work, had a quick dinner, and then left for an important meeting at 7 p.m. While he was away, chaos erupted in the house. About 20 minutes after he left, the children began to scream. In an attempt to calm them down, Lauren went to the garage to get some zip ties. Lauren told the children they were going to weave a necklace and placed the zip ties around their necks. No idea what was going on and were happily playing along. However, Leanne was angry with her mother and criticized what she was doing. For Leanne, it was not a game. In a fit of rage, Lauren began suffocating her children with pillows and blankets. She said that she was very sick and would soon die, and that she was killing her children because she was afraid that no one would take care of them. After Lauren believed the children were dead, she attempted to end your life. Lauren cut herself with a knife, but the blade was too dull to cut deeply. Ultimately, she resorted to pills, consuming several large doses of various medications. But these were not enough to end her life. In a moment of confusion, Lauren collapsed on the kitchen floor, lost in her thoughts about her actions. At that moment, Graham came home. He noticed something was wrong with her and asked if she was okay, but she responded in a way he couldn't understand. Sensing something was very wrong, he rushed upstairs to check on the kids. Going up to the room, he hoped everything was okay, but instead, he found the lifeless bodies of his children on the bed. The horrifying reality unfolded before his eyes. In desperation, he sought help. With the help of colleagues at a nearby hospital, he ran out into the street to meet one of them. As he closed the door behind him, the last thing he saw was Lauren lying on the floor with her eyes closed. He didn't know if she was alive, his only concern was his daughters. So he didn't check on Lauren. A friend at the hospital tried to revive the children, but their efforts were in vain. Around 9:40 p.m., neighbors heard a loud noise, which turned out to be a door slamming as Graham rushed outside. Soon after, they heard sobbing and screaming coming from the house. Graham approached the house and admitted that everything was his fault. He was distressed about leaving the children with their mother, who was not mentally stable. Neighbors called emergency services, and the police and ambulance arrived around 10 p.m. Officers discovered the bodies of the murdered children in the house. The twins, Maya and Carla, aged 2, and their 6-year-old, Leanne, had been killed. In the kitchen, police found Lauren alive and conscious. She answered their questions but spoke very softly. The Lauren appeared to be in shock. The police discovered shallow cuts on her hands and forearms. When asked if she had used any illegal drugs that evening, she denied it. Later, police found 9 medication bottles in her trash, along with a package containing hundreds of cable ties. A toxicological examination revealed that her blood did not contain any illegal drugs or alcohol, but it did show high levels of antidepressants, sedatives, and other medications. 40-year-old Lauren was promptly arrested and taken to the hospital for help. The brutal murders of the Dickison family shocked the local community and then spread throughout New Zealand and South Africa. The nanny who worked for the family was speechless when she heard the news. She struggled to accept that it was true. In an interview, the nanny described Lauren, Graham, and their children as an ideal family, saying that she had never witnessed any arguments or conflicts within their household. The nanny firmly believed that Lauren loved her children deeply. She last saw the children in June 2021, when the Dickison family was excited about moving to New Zealand. After Lauren was taken into custody, Graham had to return to South Africa because his visa was expiring in December 2021. He later returned to participate in the trial. He communicated with Lauren and found it hard to believe that she had harmed the children. The day after her arrest, Lauren woke up in the hospital. She was in disbelief about her situation and was even more shocked, and the police entered her room and accused her of killing 3 girls. On September 18th, Lauren Dickison was officially charged with triple murder. Lauren admitted to the crime but stated that she did not want to harm her children. She explained that her actions stemmed from her mental instability and the overwhelming challenges she faced as a mother. Lauren expressed feelings of inadequacy in her parenting, struggling to manage her children, who were often screaming. Eventually, the stress became unbearable for her. She recounted how she killed her children, first Carla, then Leanne, and finally Maya, using pillows and blankets to suffocate them. Although Lauren denied experiencing auditory or visual hallucinations, her lawyer requested a psychiatric evaluation following the preliminary court hearing. During this time, Lauren refused to eat and lost weight, dropping to 47 kilograms. Her physical and mental health issues delayed the case for a month, leading to the rescheduling of the hearing for July 2023, nearly 2 years after the tragic events. In court, Lauren's lawyers sought to focus on her mental health struggles as part of their defense strategy. New Zealand law is very lenient towards those who commit crimes against children, especially in cases of manslaughter, where the offender can receive a suspended sentence. It was important for the defense to show that Lauren's actions were a response to extreme stress, showing that she considered killing her child a form of self-defense. The trial began on July 17, 2023, and lasted 4 weeks. Attorneys have said that Lauren had suffered from years of health problems and struggled with depression. Her mental health struggles led her to consider killing her daughter as a way to deliverance. Tensions had recently escalated between Lauren and her children. They often disobeyed her, which led her to resort to physical punishment and consider sedatives. During the trial, Graham revealed that Lauren had raised concerns about the children's safety on 3 separate occasions, but he had not taken them seriously. Each time he left the house, he felt remorse. In May 2019, Lauren expressed a desire to smother their daughters with pillows. In July 2011, she mentioned wanting to cut their femoral arteries in the bathroom. Despite these alarming statements, they were not considered serious at the time. Lauren has a hard time managing her spoiled twins, expressing her frustration by saying, "Children drive she crazy. They are wild, brazen, and disobedient. She tired of them. She wish I could start over and make different choices." Lauren had to face many difficulties to become a parent, making it difficult for others to believe that she could hurt the children. During the trial, Graham described her difficulties in raising her children. He rarely saw her show affection to her children, and they did not seem to seek her out. This became especially evident when he was home more often and the children clung to him, leaving Lauren without the opportunity to play with them. He sensed something was wrong, but attributed it to her withdrawn personality and inability to participate in fun activities. Graham mentioned that New Zealand did not meet Lauren's expectations. The new country felt completely different from what she had envisioned. This led to a significant cultural shock from everything she encountered. Graham expressed forgiveness towards his wife, believing she was overwhelmed by the challenges she faced. He urged others to forgive her and pray for Lauren. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office aimed to demonstrate that the triple murder was premeditated. They presented evidence showing that the actions were methodical and intentional, including search engine queries. Lauren had repeatedly searched for lethal doses of various medications for children and methods of strangulation. Additionally, she had confided her disturbing plans to family members on several occasions. The prosecutor argued that Lauren was frustrated and angry with her children because she felt unable to manage them and was resentful towards them, believing that the girls negatively impacted her relationship with her husband. Psychiatrists confirmed that Lauren was likely in an unstable mental state at the time of the crime. Experts noted that Lauren was experiencing significant anxiety during this period. On August 14, 2013, the jury began reviewing the evidence in the case, which included hundreds of pages of research reports and documents from police and experts. After initial deliberations, the jury was unable to reach a consensus on Lauren's guilt. They returned to the office to review detailed police footage of the victim's parents, which took more than 15 hours and lasted 2 days. On August 16, after a hearing at Christchurch, Lauren's attorney, and Tui, said the best place for Lauren to serve her sentence was in hospital, a placement that all 3 mental health professionals who evaluated her agreed with. Lauren Dickinson will be detained at hospital pending assessment before a sentencing date is finalized. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Rudolf Farias. On March 7, 2015, Rudolf Farias walks with his 2 dogs. Afternoon, his 2 dogs came back separately to the front door of their home, dragging their leashes, but Rudolf was missing. Despite this, Janie relentlessly followed every small lead to find her son, but she was unsuccessful. Even with the many recent tragedies in the Santana family, Janie stayed determined in her belief that her son would be found. Speculation emerged that Rudolf's disappearance could be connected to his biological father. Rudolf's father, who was a law enforcement officer, was found dead from a gunshot wound in his patrol car. Before this, Rudolf's older brother had died in a car accident, and now Rudolf has vanished, leaving very little evidence to track him down. Janie, a resolute mother, was steadfast in not giving in to hopelessness. She took an active role in online forums to ensure her son's name and case stayed in the spotlight, hoping his story would not fade into obscurity. She believed that his disappearance might be linked to human trafficking and criticized the state police for their lack of action. Janie suggested there could be complicity within the law enforcement community, potentially shielding criminals and avoiding conflicts with powerful individuals. Ever since Janie started speaking out about the issue of human trafficking, she felt her safety was at risk. Her fears were confirmed when Rudolf's uncle, Jerry, died in a motorcycle accident on the 2nd anniversary of his nephew's disappearance. Jerry had been actively involved in the search for the young man. On National Missing Persons Day, he gave an emotional speech about Rudolf's generous nature and compassion for others, highlighting the pain of a mother who has lost her child. Jerry never directly said that Rudolf had been harmed, but shortly before his unexpected death, he contacted the owner of a local social media outlet called Voice of Houston. This was a platform the family often used. Jerry wanted to schedule a meeting to share important information about Rudolf's case, which was planned for a week later. Sadly, Jerry died just a day before the meeting, suggesting he might have discovered sensitive information he wasn't supposed to. As interest in Rudolph's disappearance waned due to a lack of concrete evidence, Janie, with the help of volunteers and family members, created T-shirts with her son's image and shared his photos online. On the evening of June 29, 2023, a 911 emergency call reported finding an unconscious and injured young man outside the Immaculate Heart Church. That was a man in his 20s with minor injuries and bruises. After getting the emergency call, the law enforcement agents were uncertain about the man's identity. When he regained consciousness, the man was silenced, showed signs of fear and confusion, and had no ID or wallet. However, a crucial clue found in his pocket helped solve the mystery. Authorities identified the man as Rudolph Farias and contacted his mother, Janie Santana, to inform her. Janie recognized her son by his eyes and confirmed his identity, she quickly moving to his side and staying there constantly. After 8 years of despair, Rudolph's return felt almost miraculous to his family. Although he had not yet spoken to the authorities, it was expected that, once he was settled and at ease with his family, he would share his memory and explain how he ended up near the church, miles from home. Rudolph showed signs of physical distress, including leg ulcers, various cuts and bruises, and dried blood in his hair. However, these injuries could be treated. Janie took to her social media to thank everyone who helped keep the search for Rudolph ongoing. She acknowledged that she didn't have any new information about his whereabouts during the missing years but was committed to supporting his recovery, his health. She mentioned that trying to discuss his past made him withdraw, become silent, and curl into a fetal position. Despite this, Janie was deeply grateful that her son had returned after such a long time away. Rudolph always kept a pendant of his late brother with him. However, the story took an unexpected turn when a credit card was found in his pocket, issued in Janie Santana's name just 2 years earlier, providing the police with a crucial lead in solving the mystery of his disappearance. Due to Rudolph's 8-year absence, the existence of a relatively new credit card in his mother's name raised important questions. As detectives investigated with Janie's neighbors and family members, they uncovered intriguing information. The local community was stunned to hear on national news about Rudolph's dramatic recovery. They were convinced they had seen him at his mother's house not long before, unaware there was a missing person case related to Janie. The collective surprise was amplified by media stories, especially since the young man they recognized wasn't called Rudolph, but Dolph. Although Rudolph doesn't have a twin, neighbors often describe Dolph as introverted yet approachable. He was frequently seen socializing on the street or joining card games in garages. While gentle and friendly, Dolph always seemed confused and usually walked his mother to her workplace in the evenings. Janie encouraged her son's involvement with the neighbors, suggesting they invite him to dinner or give small gifts to show appreciation for their kindness. Despite Rudolph, which is very similar to Dolph, it puzzled the neighbors how this situation occurred. It was eventually revealed that Dolph and Rudolph were actually the same person, who had been missing for nearly 8 years. However, questions arose. Why were all the news outlets saying that the boy had been found, especially when, according to the neighbors, he never went missing? If his mother knew this, why was she often participating in missing persons forums and posting melancholy updates on social media? Who really is Janie Santana? When Janie Santana met her most recent spouse, she was already a mother to Rudolph, while her future partner had a child from a previous relationship. They were on the path to forming a big blended family. The kids got along right away. Rudolph was thrilled to gain a brother, Charles, who was 8 years older than him. Everything seemed perfect until, a year after the wedding, the husband discovered that Janie was simultaneously married to another man, making this her 5th marriage. After separating from her previous spouse, Janie did not want to complete the divorce process and became hostile toward her partner. She was fined $43,000 for her unlawful actions. Moreover, her siblings sued her for neglecting their elderly mother, Rose, who suffered from dementia and needed constant care. Although the siblings were ready to take care of their mother, Janie convinced Rose that living with her and Rudolph was the best option. Finally, Janie got the right to take care of Rose, but she faces terrible living conditions at Jane's house. Rose lived in an unhygienic environment, forced to sleep on a dirty and wet couch. The house was filled with animal waste because it wasn't cleaned regularly. Rose even had to go to the hospital because of infected bed sores. Jane's siblings tried to talk to Rose, but her mental abilities were impaired. Janie showed no willingness to make changes, leading them to take legal action against Janie for keeping a home that was not clean, safe, or suitable for an elderly person. In court, they claimed she was a compulsive liar who didn't properly care for their mother. However, Janie's attitude toward Rose did not seem loving. Her family believed she was mainly interested in the financial benefits from the state for caregiving Rose. Janie appeared to be a dedicated single mother, but she had unusual habits, especially a strong obsession with social media. She spent her free time focused on her online presence, where she mostly interacted with herself. Janie created several fake profiles to comment on her own posts. She used these accounts to have detailed conversations, asking questions and responding as if she were different people. Her goal was to create the appearance of popularity on her social media, making her profile seem very active. Like many people, Janie enjoyed drama and often turned small matters into big ones. One day, her son Rudolph had a swelling in his leg after visiting the family doctor, who confirmed that the swelling was harmless. However, Janie quickly took him to the emergency room, urging him to say he had taken many pills to try and escape an alleged cancer diagnosis. After his hospitalization, Janie took and shared a photo of Rudolph in his hospital bed, making her audience believe he was battling cancer. Some online users speculated that Janie might be showing signs of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a condition where caregivers create or induce medical problems in those they care for to gain attention and sympathy by telling false stories of sacrifice and suffering. Despite this, children generally display different characteristics from their parents, and Rudolph was a clear example of this difference. Even though Rudolph's relationship was mainly his mom and her numerous partners, his personality was very different from Janie's. Rudolph was naturally compassionate and kind, always ready to help anyone in need, even if it was just a stray cat. As he grew up, he stood out for being shy, gentle, and introverted. Besides his mother, Rudolph's only true confidant was his beloved stepbrother Charles, who acted as both a father figure and an older brother. Rudolph looked up to Charles and wanted to follow in his footsteps, especially after Charles joined the Marine Corps. This motivated Rudolph to consider a career in the military as well. On a significant day, while Janie and Rudolph were at home, a phone call suddenly altered their lives. After receiving disturbing news, Janie, in a panic, rushed Rudolph outside. That day, Charles had been in a motorcycle accident near their home. The family, along with their mother, arrived at the scene before the paramedics. At only 13 years old, Rudolph faced the traumatic sight of his older brother dying by the roadside in Houston, an experience that deeply impacted him. On the first anniversary of Charles's tragic death, Rudolph, despite being young, used social media to express his grief. He recalled that it had been a year since Charles went to meet the Lord, regretting not having expressed his affection to him. Rudolph wholeheartedly wished his dear brother would come back. 3 years after Charles's passing, Rudolph's biological father also died, though they had barely had any contact. The father, a former police officer, was found dead in his patrol car. He had been dismissed from the force for falsifying reports and issuing excessive speeding tickets for personal gain. Over 3 years, he had illegally earned more than $150,000 through fake overtime. Facing humiliation and impending legal consequences, and unable to cope with the scandal and loss of his career, Rudolph, who essentially grew up without a father, had to accept the harsh truth that he would never have the chance to rebuild a relationship with him. This realization deeply affected his fragile mental state, stirring up feelings of resentment, sorrow, and anger. By the age of 16, Rudolph had already experienced the loss of 2 important people in his life, his stepbrother and his biological father. Despite having a mature understanding of grief, deep down, Rudolph still held on to the innocence of a child. His relatives noticed that emotionally, he was like a 10-year-old, trusting, gentle, sweet, and naively youthful. Time later, Rudolph suddenly disappeared. For the next 8 years, Janie shared the story of how he went missing after a routine dog walk, which usually lasted 15 to 20 minutes. When 2 hours passed without Rudolph returning, Janie felt a surge of motherly panic after hearing barking at the door. She hurried to check and found only one dog, its leash dragging behind it having come back alone. She guessed that Rudolph had gone to look for the other dog, causing his delay. The second dog didn't return until the next morning, but Rudolph was still missing. Janie was very upset when she called the police and accidentally gave the wrong birth date for her son. This caused the officers to think Rudolph was an adult. As a result, they didn't act quickly because they assumed the teenager had simply decided to leave home on his own. The search focused on the usual route Rudolph would take, where they found a backpack with notebooks and an asthma inhaler. Janie confirmed that these items belonged to her son, although there was no sign of criminal activity. The detectives considered the teenager missing, and Janie assumed the role of a worried mother. She quickly made and distributed posters with her son's picture all over the city, rallying the support of the police, family, friends, and the general community in the search effort, who showed empathy and offered their help. Over time, the story of Rudolph's disappearance faded as law enforcement personnel changed and the community moved on with their lives. Janie was the only one who remained dedicated to finding her son. She created a webpage for Rudolph's search, appealing to the public's empathy and raising over $2,000 in donations to support the effort. Over the years, as official investigations made little progress, Santana began using online forums and social media to express her worries. Feeling something was seriously amiss, she expressed her intention to travel to a town on the USA-Mexico border, believing that Rudolph had become a victim of human trafficking. She decided to embark on a personal quest to rescue him. Janie described the trip to her family and friends as dangerous and challenging, and she even started a fundraiser to pay for it. However, those who knew her suspected that Janie might be using Rudolph's situation as an excuse for a short vacation and a way to collect money. They had backed her before in similar ventures, dropping everything to join her in her travels whenever rumors of Rudolph's sightings popped up across the country. After each fruitless search, Janie would lament on social media the pain of being separated from her son, pleading with guardian angels to protect him while she was away. Through her posts, she would speak directly to Rudolph, expressing how much she missed him. Meanwhile, as she crafted these sorrowful tales, Rudolph was actually at home for 8 years. Janie had isolated him, keeping him behind a locked door. Although not physically chained, Rudolph experienced psychological imprisonment, losing his freedom. Rudolph became disheartened by the way he was treated at home, feeling that he were deeply disrespected, leading Rudolph to decide to escape. His attempt to break free took about 24 hours. By the next day, he was back home, a detail only Janie knew. It seemed like the mother had used this incident both as a punishment and as an opportunity to draw attention to herself. After a long walk with the dogs, during which he was gone for several hours, Rudolph wanted to apologize for the worry he had caused. but Janie told him that he was now wanted by the police. She made up a story about him getting a speeding ticket days before, and with his disappearance already reported, she hinted that the authorities believed he was avoiding legal consequences. Now labeled as a criminal, Rudolph, with no legal knowledge and trusting mother. Thus, he spent the first day locked in his room, which turned into a week, then a year, under his mother's manipulative influence. Every time visitors came, Rudolph would retreat to his room and remain completely silent, a prisoner in his own home. Rosa, Rudolph's grandmother, knew he was present and tried several times to tell her children. However, Rudolph's aunts and uncles ignored her, thinking she was just confused due to senile dementia. After the case was settled, Janie let her son go out occasionally to visit the neighbors, but now she called him Dolph. The missing person posters showed his photo at 14, so it's no wonder many didn't recognize him. His mother thought a childhood photo would evoke more sympathy from people. Sometimes, she'd give him her credit card and send him to the store to buy groceries or other things to keep him from realizing she was using him. Janie secretly added illegal substances and sedatives to his meals, which made him feel slow and unable to think clearly. She kept threatening him with jail and the police, so he reluctantly remained at home. There were many rumors about Janie's inappropriate behavior with her adult son. She would enter his bathroom without knocking and make Rudolph lie with her under the blanket without clothes. However, Rudolph suggested there were some intimate moments between them. He felt that his mother still treated him like a child and just acted as though he were her husband. The family also saw Rudolph in town more than once and reported it to the police. Uniformed officers would come to Janie's house and even look inside, but without a warrant, they couldn't enter. During this time, Janie acted calmly, not raising any suspicions among the officers. The cops would leave, saying the tip was false. No law enforcement officer, no family member, nobody could have imagined that Rudolph had been quietly living under his own roof, rarely going out. After enduring 8 years of being stuck at home, Rudolph came up with a plan. In the middle of the night, he grabbed his mom's car keys and credit card and sneaked out without a clear destination. Even though he hadn't driven in 8 years, he only managed to be behind the wheel for a few minutes before crashing the car, ending up with numerous cuts and bruises. He left the keys in the car and continued on foot until he reached a church. Exhausted, he collapsed. Janie posted a photo of Rudolph in a hospital bed on social media to gain sympathy. This picture was taken 8 years ago when he was hospitalized for a leg tumor. The authorities quickly tried to move Rudolph to a hospital, but his mother convinced them that his condition would worsen there, so she decided to take him home instead. In truth, she was worried that Rudolph would reveal the truth when he woke up. On July 5, 2023, Rudolph gathered enough courage to speak up and confided only in a local activist named Quell, known for advocating for the rights of discrimination victims. Quell helped people share their cases through media coverage and negotiations with law enforcement. Despite Janie's constant interruptions during the conversation, Rudolph managed to express his side of the story. Eventually, it became clear that Janie's presence was hindering the dialogue, and she was asked to leave the room. Rudolph showed signs of self-harm, reflecting the impact of his confinement. Despite feeling uneasy sharing a bed with his mother, he stressed his lasting love for her. Quell publicly expressed that a mother who did such things should face consequences for her actions and was surprised that Janie was not yet arrested. Quell was deeply moved by Rudolph's story. However, that very night, Rudolph went back home with his mother. Janie, trying to manipulate him emotionally, threatened to harm herself unless Rudolph withdrew his statement to the police, not knowing their conversation was being recorded. Meanwhile, Janie stuck to her false story. At a press conference, the police announced that they would not press charges against Janie for now, due to insufficient evidence of her wrongdoing. Rudolph is currently staying with a family friend, but it is unclear how far his mother might go to regain custody of him and attract more attention on social media. The International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which operates worldwide, reports that hundreds of thousands of missing children are reported every year, and that parents are often involved in these disappearances. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Mindy Morgenstern. Mindy Morgenstern was born on April 29, 1984, in Bogota, Colombia. She and her sister were adopted by Eunice and Larry Morgenstern, farmers from New Salem, North Dakota, USA. The couple already had a biological daughter named Rebecca, but they wanted a larger family. They adopted a boy named Michael and later a girl from Colombia named April. When they found out April had a younger sister, Mindy, they decided to adopt her as well. This completed their family of 4 children, with 3 being adopted. Mindy was the youngest. Growing up on the farm suited Mindy perfectly. She enjoyed horseback riding and playing basketball. She assisted her parents with farm work and was even skilled enough to drive a tractor. After high school, Mindy relocated to Valley City and became in college life. Her outgoing and cheerful personality helped her make friends quickly. She balanced her studies with a part-time job as a waitress at a local restaurant. Her future had looked promising, but now her plans and dreams were shattered. Mindy's friends, Tony Ballman and Danielle Holmstrom, became concerned when she failed to answer her cell phone and didn't return their calls on September 13, 2006. They decided to visit her apartment to check on her. Upon arrival, they noticed Mindy's car parked in a lot, and Tony went up to the second floor to knock on her door. When no one answered, Tony entered the unlocked apartment and found it dark in the house. After taking a few steps, she stumbled upon something on the floor. Turning on the light revealed the lifeless body of Mindy, with visible injuries on her neck. Tony was shocked and immediately ran outside to call Danielle, who was waiting in the car. The two of them re-entered the apartment, confused and trying to make sense of what they saw. Mindy's body showed signs of knife wounds on her neck, and an empty bottle of cleaning agent lay nearby. The strong smell of the cleaning agent filled the entire apartment. Danielle quickly called 911 to report the discovery of her friend's body. Hearing the noise, a neighbor living on the same floor decided to come check out what was happening. He walked up to Mindy, he checked for a pulse and, after a few moments, confirmed to Tony and Danielle that their friend was deceased. Soon after, the police arrived at Mindy's apartment and were immediately hit with the strong smell of cleaning agent. Upon entering, they found Mindy's body lying across the living room floor with a belt wrapped around her neck and a broken knife lodged in it. The handle of the knife was lying next to her. It was clear that the perpetrator had attempted to destroy evidence using the cleaning agent, but fortunately, some evidence remained. Forensic experts discovered skin particles under Mindy's left-hand fingernails, indicating that she had resisted and scratched her attacker. As investigators worked to determine the motive behind the attack, they quickly ruled out a robbery gone. Mindy's purse, phone, wallet, and cash were still clutched in her right hand, and her jewelry and other valuables were untouched. The scene suggested that Mindy had been attacked the moment she entered her apartment with a basket of clean laundry, which was found next to her body. There were no signs of forced entry on the front door. This suggests that the person who attacked Mindy may have known her, or they may have entered the apartment immediately after her. The following day, detectives faced the difficult task of informing Mindy's family of her passing. Her parents, brother, and sisters were devastated by the news. The family couldn't think of anyone who would want to harm Mindy, as she was well liked by everyone. Furthermore, none of her friends had any problems with the law. Tony and Danielle, friends of Mindy, told investigators that they were not the only people in the apartment. A neighbor from the same floor had entered Mindy's apartment after hearing their screams, checked her pulse, and confirmed that she was deceased. When questioned, the man claimed he had checked Mindy's pulse with the back of his hand to avoid leaving fingerprints on her wrist. Which investigators found suspicious. This man's name is Robert Lind, and he had several scratches on his hands, making him a suspect. The police took Robert to the station for questioning. However, after reviewing his background and discovering his history of run-ins with the law, the number of questions increased. The police asked about the scratches on his hands, which he claimed were work-related injuries, explaining that his job working with steel often resulted in such scratches. When questioned about his activities on the day of the incident, Robert reported being at work from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Robert's boss verified this information and added that employees working in the same industry as Robert often have scratches on their hands due to the nature of their work. Despite his alibi, investigators did not clear Robert as a suspect and requested he a DNA sample, which he agreed to provide. The sample was sent to the lab for comparison with DNA found under Mindy's fingernails. The police interviewed Mindy's friends but found no leads. Everyone reported that Mindy had no conflicts with anyone. While waiting for DNA results, investigators spoke with other neighbors, including Mo Gibbs, a corrections officer from the Barnes County Jail. Mo lived in the same building as Mindy and was familiar with the investigators, so they hoped he might have noticed something unusual. As a corrections officer, Mo was likely more observant than the average person. He was married with a stepchild and lived in the apartment next door to Mindy. When he came to the police station for questioning, he brought his child, so one of the police kept the child, while Mo answered questions. Mo reported serving in the Navy from 1990 to 1999. He was discharged after being convicted of assault, for which he served a prison sentence. Following his release, he had no further run-ins with the law. Before becoming a corrections officer, Mo worked as a college security guard. On the day before Mindy's death, Mo claimed to have worked a night shift. The next morning, he returned home and began loading boxes into his car in preparation for moving to a new apartment with his wife and stepdaughter. Mo stated that he didn't notice anything unusual, but he did notice a strong smell of cleaning agent. However, he didn't investigate the source of the smell due to being preoccupied with the move. Mo had scratches on his hands, which he attributed to injuring himself while carrying boxes. When questioned by police about whether he had ever been to Mindy's apartment, Mo replied that he had visited once to help Mindy carry a laundry basket. Investigators requested a DNA sample from Mo for comparison, and he agreed without hesitation. After providing the sample, he was allowed to leave. Investigators sought to speak with anyone who had a close relationship with Mindy. To do this, they visited the restaurant where she was employed and conducted interviews with her co-workers. During these conversations, they discovered that a particular individual had been making Mindy feel uneasy. This person, a regular at the restaurant, resided in a nearby trailer and frequently visited the establishment. His behavior was described as peculiar, and Mindy had expressed discomfort when he was around. The man in question was identified as Ralph. When questioned by the police, he denied any involvement in Mindy's death, claiming he had no knowledge of who she was. According to Ralph, he had never had any disputes with anyone at the restaurant. Although Ralph did not have an alibi, he willingly provided a DNA sample. The police then sent this sample to a laboratory for comparative analysis. Next, investigators spoke with Jordan Ran, Mindy's boyfriend of over a year. He and Mindy shared a similar background, both coming from local farming families, and had met at church. Jordan had a clean record and a good reputation in town. He appeared dedicated to Mindy, often taking her to his family's home to spend time together. However, Mindy's parents reported that Jordan would sometimes arrive unannounced at their farm, asking to see Mindy. They sensed he might be jealous, but didn't think he was capable of harming their daughter. Jordan went to the police station immediately after being asked to do so. He was cooperative and honest in his responses to the investigators' questions. According to Jordan, he had spent time with Mindy the day before her death, going shopping and visiting a video rental store together. The next day, Mindy called him at 10:45 a.m., which turned out to be the day of her death. What struck Jordan as unusual was that this was the only call they exchanged that day. Normally, Mindy would call him about 10 times a day, but on that day, there was only that one call, and when he tried to reach her later, she didn't answer. Jordan assumed she was busy and would call him back, but unfortunately, that never happened. Jordan also provided details about his activities at the time of Mindy's death, stating that he was working on his family's farm. The investigators requested a DNA sample and asked him to undergo a polygraph test, to which he agreed. However, during the polygraph test, Jordan was very nervous, so the test results were unclear. Despite this, the police released him, sent his DNA sample for analysis, and began verifying his alibi. Kyle Kia, Mindy's ex-boyfriend, who was also a potential suspect. They had broken up over a year before her death, but something unusual occurred after the breakup. Kyle met Mindy when she was a freshman. They dated for 2.5 years, during which time Kyle regularly visited Mindy's family farm. Her family adored him and treated him like one of their own. Mindy loved Kyle deeply and thought they would eventually get married. However, their relationship ultimately ended without a wedding. When questioned by investigators, Kyle shared the story of his time with Mindy. He recounts the story of how they first met and the intense attraction they feel from the very first moment. Kyle described their 2.5-year relationship as having ups and downs. Kyle and Mindy began arguing frequently. After completing his university studies, Kyle needed to move forward with his life, so he relocated to a new area about an hour's drive from Valley City. This move concerned Mindy, who feared Kyle might find someone else, as maintaining a long-distance relationship can be tough. According to Kyle, he chose to end the relationship due to these challenges. Following the breakup, Mindy made efforts to reconcile with Kyle, but he said he'd have started seeing another girl and subsequently ceased communication with Mindy. However, about 7 months before Mindy passed away, she went to Kyle's house to talk to him. Kyle insisted he had nothing to discuss and asked her to leave. The conversation ended, and Mindy becoming upset and departing, marking the last time they spoke to each other. Kyle's demeanor changed a few days after Mindy's death, as he sat in the interrogation room. He expressed regret over his actions and revealed that Mindy had been in contact with his father, Rodney Kia, which he found unusual. According to Mindy's friends, Rodney would call her multiple times a day, sometimes scaling back to just a few calls a week. Kyle believed his father had become overly attached to Mindy. At one point, Kyle asked his father to cease communication with Mindy. He also mentioned that his mother discovered the frequent calls and was upset, telling Rodney it was wrong given. Despite this, the Kyle family had a genuine affection for Mindy, and her communication with Rodney may have been a way for her to maintain a connection with Kyle. The police investigated Mindy's voicemail and discovered a message from Rodney, left after her death, in which he was crying and apologizing for what had happened. This close relationship between Rodney and Mindy raised suspicions, and the police called him in for questioning. The police asked Rodney about his attachment to Mindy, his son's 22-year-old ex-girlfriend. Rodney acknowledged it was unusual but explained that he grew fond of Mindy when she was dating his son, Kyle. He liked Mindy because she reminded him of his wife when his wife was young. Initially, they discussed Kyle, but soon their conversations and texts expanded to other topics, and even after his wife discovered their conversation, this continued. Rodney stated that he and Mindy spoke frequently, sometimes up to 20 times a week, with Mindy usually initiating the calls. He described their relationship as paternal, considering her like a daughter, and was shocked by her death. He left a voicemail message for investigators, wanting to talk to Mindy one last time. However, these emotional messages only increased suspicions about Rodney's intentions. Although investigators doubted a romantic relationship between Mindy and Rodney, they considered the possibility that he had become dangerously obsessed with her. Rodney gave his DNA to the police and told them he was working on his farm with his 2 sons from 7:30 a.m. until evening on the day in question. His family backed up his story, so the investigators let him go. The police then sent Rodney's DNA to a lab to compare it with skin particles found under the victim, Mindy's, fingernails. As the police continued their search for Mindy's killer, people in Valley City grew increasingly worried about their safety. Many people were too afraid to leave their homes because the person who killed Mindy was still at large. 6 days after Mindy's passing, her funeral was held. Due to the large number of people wanting to pay their respects, the service took place in the school gym instead of the church. Undercover police officers attended, keeping a discreet watch on the crowd for any suspicious behavior, as it was suspected that Mindy's killer might be in attendance there. The police had also asked attendees to take photos and videos of the crowd, hoping to capture any unusual behavior. However, this effort did not produce any leads. With no new suspects, the police were left waiting for the results of DNA tests from existing suspects. However, investigators uncovered a significant lead. Upon analyzing the DNA found under Mindy's fingernails and entering it into the federal database, they discovered a match from a 2-year-old case in Fargo, North Dakota, approximately 75 miles from Valley City. In this prior case, the attacker forced her to have sex with him. The DNA match revealed that the same person was responsible for both Mindy's murder and in the attack in Fargo. These things indicated that the individual was likely to continue committing crimes. The police were now under pressure to apprehend the suspect before another victim was harmed. Although they still didn't know the perpetrator's name, the relevance to the Fargo case provided a crucial lead in the investigation of Mindy's death. The police investigating Mindy's case met with a 22-year-old woman from Fargo who had been attacked in a previous case. The woman had planned to become a teacher and had been out with friends at a bar, drinking and having fun, on the evening of the attack. She told her friends she needed to use the bathroom, but her memories stopped there. When she regained consciousness, she found herself pinned to a mattress in an unfamiliar apartment, with a man she didn't know on top of her. He covered her mouth to prevent her from screaming, and she tried to resist. Surprisingly, the man eventually let her go. She was barefoot and disheveled, with her purse missing. She reported the incident to the police and described her attacker as a muscular African-American man, over 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. Although the police couldn't find the attacker at the time, they had his DNA, which they entered into the federal database, but the case remained unsolved for 2 years. It was later discovered that the same man had committed another attack, this time resulting in death. In the investigation of Mindy's case, the police collected multiple DNA samples and sent them to the lab for analysis. After conducting more in-depth analysis, the lab experts found a match. The DNA belonged to one of the individuals who had voluntarily provided a sample DNA. Surprisingly, the match was not Mindy's ex-boyfriend Kyle or his father Rodney, who had initially raised suspicion. Instead, the DNA from the skin found under Mindy's fingernails belonged to 34-year-old Mo Gibbs. He worked as a corrections officer at the Barnes County Jail. O had undergone a big transformation in his past, having moved from being a member of the Crips gang in Central California to serving in the U.S. Navy. He had been married with children but got divorced and later relocated to Valley City. Before becoming a corrections officer, Mo worked as a college guard. Mo had been working at the Barnes County Jail and was known to the investigators handling Mindy's case. As he appeared to be a decent individual, it came as a shock when his DNA was found under Mindy's fingernails. The investigators devised a plan to bring Gibbs in for questioning without arousing his suspicion. They contacted him, stating they needed to ask a few more questions, all while keeping him under discreet surveillance in case he attempted to flee. Mo arrived at the police station on time, unaware of the true purpose of the interrogation. Before revealing the DNA evidence, the police offered Mo the opportunity to take a polygraph test. He agreed and responded to all the questions, but there are some indications that he is lying. Despite this, Mo maintained his innocence in Mindy's death. When informed about the DNA match, Mo remained surprisingly calm, continuing to deny any involvement in Mindy's murder. However, when told that his DNA also linked him to a case in Fargo, his demeanor changed, and he smiled, but said nothing. The collected was enough to arrest Mo Gibbs. He was handcuffed and charged with the murder of Mindy Morgenstern, followed by charges related to the Fargo case. After his arrest became public, 5 female prisoners came forward, alleging that Mo had coerced them into sexual relations while he was on duty. As a result, Mo faced 6 additional charges. It may seem unusual that someone with a prison record was hired as a college guard and later as a corrections officer at Barnes County Jail. However, Mo Gibbs' employers were unaware of his true identity. He had changed his name from Glendale Morgan Jr. to Mo Gibbs before applying to these positions. When he was in the Navy, Mo was involved in a drive-by shooting and subsequently spent over 5 years in prison. During his trial, Mo's lawyers proposed a theory to explain how his DNA came to be under the victim's fingernails, Mindy. They suggested that she may have touched the same door handle as Mo, thus transferring the DNA. The defense further implied that Mindy's boyfriend, Jordan, could have been the one responsible for harming her. Mo pleaded guilty to charges, except those directly related to Mindy's death. Notably, neither his fingerprints nor DNA were found on the knife that caused Mindy's injuries. Prosecutors attributed this lack of evidence to the use of a cleaning agent, which they believed he had eradicated all traces. The prosecution's theory was that Mo had entered Mindy's apartment immediately after she, with the intention of coercing her into intimacy. When she resisted, he lost his temper and murdered her. In an attempt to eliminate any evidence, he then doused the area with a cleaning agent. Mo maintained that if he had been the one responsible for Mindy's death, he would not have willingly provided a DNA sample. On July 12, 2007, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision, resulting in the trial being postponed by 4 months. During the retrial, prosecutors were better prepared and showed DNA experts to counter-challenge the defense's argument. The defense claimed that Mo's DNA was found under Mindy's fingernails due to accidental contact with a door handle. However, the experts testified that the amount of DNA found could only have resulted from intense physical contact. Additionally, Mo's cellmate testified that he had confessed to the crime and had even expressed a desire to commit the same crime again if given the opportunity. After deliberating for 27 hours, the jury delivered a guilty verdict on November 20, 2007. When given the opportunity to speak before sentencing, Mo Gibbs, 35, maintained his innocence and expressed sympathy for Mindy's family. He sent his condolences, as well as prayers, to Mindy's family. He added that it was horrible, and it should never have happened, and he was sorry that it had happened. The judge found the evidence against Gibbs to be overwhelming, showing that he had strangled and stabbed Mindy, then poured the detergent over her face and body. The judge also denied Mo's request for a new trial. Mo Gibbs received a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Mindy Morgenstern. He was also given a 12-year sentence for assaulting a woman in Fargo and an additional 15 years for other charges. Mo Gibbs is currently serving his sentence at the North Dakota State Penitentiary in Bismarck. After the sentencing, Mindy's mother, Eunice, addressed Mo that she forgive his, but she won't forget what you did to Mindy. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Justine Valdez. On May 19, 2018, Justine Valdez, 24, after completing the residency permit application process, she went to the gym to work out, finishing at around 4:20 p.m. With plans to go home, her mother, Terrace, texted her to pick up some bread on the way. Justine agreed, stopping at the store before catching the 185 bus to Bray, which departed at 6:09 p.m. The bus dropped Justine off at a familiar stop near her rural home called Aina Car Village. It usually took her 15 to 20 minutes to walk home. Although it was not a difficult journey for someone as young and active as Justine, her family became worried when she did not arrive home on time. Justine often told her family where she was and when she would be home, so her mother, Terrace, grew increasingly worried as time passed without any news from her. When Terrace tried calling and texting Justine, she did not respond. This prompted Terrace to go out and look for her. While searching, she asked strangers if they had seen Justine, describing her features and the sporty outfit that made her stand out from the crowd. Although some people saw Justine getting off the bus, no one knew where she went after that. Terrace's search for her daughter ended in frustration and growing fear. She had no idea what had happened to Justine on her way home, and with each passing moment, her anxiety grew. Terrace searched the streets, looking for Justine, but still found nothing. Justine's disappearance left her mother devastated, unable to find any trace of her daughter. Terrace, desperate, contacted the police to report the situation. The police quickly took her statement and began searching for Justine. As the police searched the area, they investigated Justine's life and social connections. It was learned that she lived with her parents, Terrace and Daniel Valdez, in the quiet rural area of Nisar, Ireland. Originally from the Philippines, Justine's parents moved to Ireland in search of a better life in 2015. Despite their difficult start, her parents worked hard to support Justine's education and life. A diligent student, Justine studied accounting at university while working part-time to support herself and help her family financially. Her part-time jobs included waitressing in Bray and babysitting for local families. Her parents, who lived in the servants' quarters of a large estate, worked for a prominent family, her mother as a housekeeper and her father as a gardener. Justine was known to be responsible, hardworking, and devoted to her family. Furthermore, her limited social circle and lack of typical teenage rebellious behavior made the idea of her running away seem implausible. When police contacted people who knew Justine, no one had any information about her whereabouts. The possibility of her running away was quickly ruled out. She was extremely close to her parents and kept them updated on her daily activities. On the day she went missing, she exchanged 63 text messages with her mother. The last of which came at 6:24 p.m. when Justine got off the bus. Police trying to find Justine received a vital tip. This led them to a disturbing incident that occurred just minutes after Justine got off the bus. A female driver reported seeing a man aggressively pushing a dark-haired Asian woman, wearing tracksuit bottoms similar to Justine, into the boot of a black Nissan Qashqai. The woman and her 12-year-old son drove past the scene and immediately called the police. Shortly after, another driver witnessed a similar alarming scene. This time, the Asian woman, who appeared to be very frightened, was seen sitting in the back of the car, knocking on the window for help. The driver who witnessed the incident discussed it with his wife when he got home, and he immediately called the police at 7:20 p.m. to report a possible kidnapping. Another driver also contacted police about a Nissan driving erratically near the scene. Police quickly arrived at the location, which the woman had called them earlier. When they arrived, they found Justine's broken phone and a bag of bread left on the side of the road, raising serious concerns for her safety. After the kidnapper tried to stuff Justine into the trunk of the car but she resisted, he forced her into the back seat and drove off to an unknown location. The suspect's black Nissan was immediately placed on the wanted list, leading to a large-scale search effort involving patrol cars and helicopters. However, the nighttime search was hampered by darkness and made no progress. The search continued as the day wore on, with police looking at witness accounts to narrow down the area where the perpetrator might be. A 40-year-old man named Mark Hennessy was identified because he matched the description of the kidnapper. Police went to his home and discovered that his wife, Nicola, did not know where he was because he had gone out drinking after work the day before. This information only added to the suspicion surrounding Mark, prompting police to investigate his background further. Mark Hennessy was a well-respected member of the community, known as a devoted husband and father to 2 young daughters, the youngest of whom was born 8 months ago in September 2017. He lived in an affluent neighborhood surrounded by other young families. His work as an estimator on construction sites provided a steady income for his family, and he had no previous run-ins with the law. However, police knew that people could often hide their true intentions behind a facade of good taste. With this in mind, the police went to the bar that Mark frequented the night before to gather more information. The staff confirmed that Mark had been there, but they said that he did not stay long. He left after drinking a beer and watching some football. Then Mark returned to the bar around midnight, his expression clearly agitated and anxious. After reviewing the security footage of the bar, the police confirmed what the staff had said. They observed Mark staying there for about 10 minutes before leaving at 5:40 p.m. Engrossed in a conversation on the phone, he quickly went to his car and drove away. Then he returned to the bar around 11 p.m. Mark returned to the bar and talked to someone he knew at the entrance for a while before leaving the bar. Police began investigating Mark's activities between 5:40 p.m. and 11 p.m. A key discovery was then made when police analyzed surveillance footage from Justine's bus route. The footage showed Mark's black Nissan following the bus, starting 30 minutes after Mark left the bar. This disturbing discovery raised further suspicions about Mark's involvement in Justine's disappearance. The search for Mark's car and the missing girl continued, and Mark became the prime suspect in Justine's abduction. Mark called his wife to say he was going away for a long time. When his family tried to convince him to turn himself in, he refused and quickly left. His parents reported to the police that they had seen Mark, and the police tried to find him. But Mark escaped. The police asked for the public's help by issuing a media appeal. They asked for anyone with knowledge of Justine, Mark, or his car to come forward. A woman who heard the appeal kept an eye out and spotted a car that looked like Mark's on the road. She followed it to Cherrywood Park and observed the driver closely, then quickly contacted the police. When the police arrived, they found a man covered in blood sitting behind the wheel of a car. Despite attempts to coax him out of the car, Mark was stubborn, brandishing a knife in a threatening manner. Faced with imminent danger, the police were forced to resort to force, resulting in Mark being shot in the shoulder. After removing him from the car, they found him conscious but still uncooperative. The police then searched the car but unfortunately did not find Justine. Mark remained silent despite being questioned several times. The medical team quickly treated him and took him to the hospital. Doctors tried to save his life, hoping that he would eventually reveal Justine's location. Unfortunately, it was discovered that the bullet had ricocheted and hit Mark in the head. Further investigation revealed a gruesome discovery: the blood on his face and body was his own, and he had several fresh stab wounds on his arms and neck. The police believe that Mark, fearing arrest, apparently used a knife from his car to attempt suicide rather than face the consequences. The police eventually caught the suspect, but instead of feeling relieved, everyone felt disappointed. They found the suspect in his car, but they still hadn't found the missing person they were looking for. A glimmer of hope came when police discovered a piece of paper at the scene. Although it was covered in blood, they could read the words "sorry" and "Pease Castle." These words suggested that this might be a clue to finding Justine. Despite this small hope, they persisted. A search was launched in a forest in South Dublin, based on a clue found near a castle. First, searchers found Justine's wallet, which contained her identification. Then, on May 21st, searchers discovered Justine's body. An autopsy revealed that she had been murdered on the night of her abduction, and that she had died from strangulation. Unfortunately, the autopsy also revealed that Justine had been sexually assaulted, adding to the brutality of her death. A toxicology report, which found trace amounts of banned substances in her system, left many questions unanswered. It is unclear how the substances entered her system or what their purpose was. However, further investigation revealed that Mark had recently consumed large amounts of these substances, adding to the mystery. It turned out that Mark was a regular user of drugs and excessive alcohol, which could have inadvertently introduced these substances into Justine's system. At the same time, Mark's family life was also beginning to fall apart due to his addiction, debt, and frequent arguments with his wife. Investigations into Mark's activities have revealed that he used the dating app Tinder to interact with multiple women and flirt with women at bars. The discovery of Mark's DNA on Justine's body further strengthened the police's suspicion that he was involved in Justine's kidnapping and murder. As the police investigated the case, they discovered that the murder was motivated by sexual desire, and Justine had unwittingly become Mark's target. He discovered Justine while he was following a bus, and took advantage of her getting off the bus, brazenly abducting her from the street without hesitation, even in the presence of multiple witnesses. An investigation into Justine and Mark's phones revealed no previous connection or communication between them. However, further analysis revealed that Mark was familiar with Justine's regular route, suggesting that her murder was premeditated. It seemed that Mark had been closely monitoring Justine's movements, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This discovery shows Mark's premeditated brutality and Justine's tragic fate. The day Justine was kidnapped, he deliberately waited at the bus stop, closely monitoring her every move, until he suddenly grabbed her. The people around were extremely shocked by this scene, as such violent crimes rarely happened in their peaceful neighborhood. Many people came to pay their condolences to Justine's family, comforting and supporting them in this time of great loss. At the funeral, heartfelt tributes were paid as white balloons floated into the sky. Some attendees wore pink t-shirts with Justine's image printed on them, a touching tribute to her memory. Justine's family decided to hold her funeral in the Philippines, her homeland, to find solace in a familiar place. Although they lived in another country for a while, they finally moved back to Ireland in 2021. By starting over in a new city and pursuing different careers, they hoped to escape the painful memories that still haunted their old home. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Kelsey Turner. Kelsey Turner was born on March 5, 1993, in Norfolk, Virginia, the second child of Samantha Ingram, who aspired to be a model and dancer. Growing up, Kelsey had an older brother named Colin. After her birth, her family moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas, a small industrial town where Kelsey spent most of her childhood. However, her family life was turned upside down when her parents divorced after a few years. After the divorce, her father returned to Virginia. Kelsey grew up into a beautiful young woman with a perfect figure and attractive features that could easily lead to a modeling career. However, she found school unappealing and enjoyed socializing with friends, dating, and attending various social events. Her ultimate ambition was to become famous, appearing on magazine covers, giving interviews, and walking the red carpet at major events. Despite her ambition, Kelsey had no real talent and had to rely on her youth and looks to survive. While in high school, she began attending modeling auditions in hopes of starting a career. Her mother, Samantha, who dreamed of becoming a model, was happy to support her daughter in pursuing her dream. Unfortunately, Kelsey's modeling career was limited to a few small photo shoots for clothing catalogs. Kelsey married Jerry Turner at the age of 18, when she was already pregnant. Their daughter, Beverly, was born shortly after the wedding. However, the marriage did not last long and ended in divorce. By the age of 20, after giving up her modeling career, Kelsey decided to pursue a career as a men's magazine model. She quickly caught the attention of several men's magazines. Kelsey saw this as the beginning of a great career and a ticket to the life she had always dreamed of. Kelsey has received several modeling offers and opportunities over the years, including photo shoots for popular publications such as Playboy and Maxim, as well as a photo shoot with 110 magazine. She frequently travels to major cities such as Los Angeles and Las Vegas to pursue these opportunities. In an interview, Kelsey describes herself as a curvaceous blonde with a slim waist and reflects her carefree personality, saying that she likes to have fun, party with her friends, and live life to the fullest. Kelsey is not overly concerned about the future. She frequently changes partners and quickly spends any money she earns or receives from fans. At 23, Kelsey became pregnant again and gave birth to a son, Josh. The father of the child did not want to marry her or acknowledge his child. As the modeling offers dried up, Kelsey turned to social media to build an audience. She actively manages her accounts, posting revealing photos in swimsuits, lingerie, or only partially covering her private parts. Kelsey has cultivated the perfect online image. Her carefully edited photos make her look beautiful, and her social media pages showcase her visits to high-end fashion stores, trendy nightclubs, and other locations. However, this ideal online image hid the true struggles of a single mother of two. Despite her wealthy appearance, her real life was difficult, as she was a poor money manager, often spending all her income at once. Around 2016, Kelsey faced serious problems after an unfortunate incident with her daughter. The girl suffered a severe trauma that left her daughter withdrawn and unable to speak. An acquaintance advised her to take her daughter to a psychiatrist. So she contacted renowned pediatric psychiatrist Dr. Thomas Burchard, who practiced in Monterey, California, to treat her daughter. Dr. Thomas Burchard is a highly respected pediatric psychiatrist who was born on February 16, 1948, in Boston, Massachusetts. He is the son of a prominent architect and engineer, and his family later moved to Virginia. Although his father taught architecture at prestigious institutions, including Harvard, Thomas chose a different path and pursued a medical career, focusing on child psychology. After completing medical school, Dr. Thomas served as a resident in pediatric psychiatry at several leading hospitals and taught at universities across the country. He eventually settled at a public clinical hospital on California's Monterey Peninsula, where he spent more than 40 years as a pediatric psychiatrist, building an impeccable reputation for his exceptional ability to connect with young patients and handle even the most complex and severe cases. He earned his doctorate from the University of California, Berkeley. Thomas was known for being kind, sharp, and incredibly generous. His compassionate nature motivated him to help those in need, especially young patients whose parents could not afford therapy. He also paid for hospital treatment for sick children from low-income families and supported single mothers. Dr. Thomas had a longtime companion named Di, who served as an assistant, housekeeper, and possibly more. As someone who knew him well, she was the first to notice changes in his behavior that showed early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. As Dr. Thomas entered his 70s, he became increasingly forgetful, absent-minded, and distracted. To hide these symptoms from his colleagues, he kept detailed diaries and notebooks to record important information, such as names, dates, and events. He always carried a notebook in his breast pocket that contained sensitive information such as bank information, account numbers, passwords, and card PINs. When Kelsey first visited Dr. Thomas with her daughter, she expressed her difficulties as a single mother and her inability to afford his services. However, the doctor offered to provide his services for free and went on to give Kelsey $300 to help support her children. Kelsey was shocked but quickly discovered that by sharing tearful stories of her difficult life, she could extort more money from the elderly doctor. Kelsey prepared a detailed plan for her next appointment with Dr. Thomas. During the visit, she told a heartbreaking story about her youngest son's illness and lack of money to buy expensive medicine for him. She gave a specific amount of money that she needed, and surprisingly, she received the entire amount from Dr. Thomas. Kelsey continued to make up false, tearful stories in the following visits. She would make up stories of hardship and receive larger and larger amounts of money from this trustworthy doctor. Of course, she did not use the money for her children but for her own entertainment, designer clothes. Not wanting to return to her hometown of Virginia, Kelsey asked Thomas to pay for her rent in California, saying that she could find work there more easily and that the climate there was better for her children. Thomas agreed and paid for the apartment she had chosen. Some people suspected that the doctor had an affair with Kelsey, a young blonde model, and that was why he always indulged her requests. However, Kelsey claimed that Thomas treated her and her children like family and acted out of kindness, not love. Thomas provided Kelsey and her children with a home, paid their bills, and gave them a large sum of money for their necessities. He also leased her a luxury Mercedes-Benz convertible. Over time, Kelsey realized that her modeling career was over and her youth was slipping away. Despite this, she made no effort to find another job and instead relied on Dr. Thomas for financial support. During this time, he spent about $500,000 on Kelsey and her children. However, she squandered that money on personal indulgences, such as breast augmentation and liposuction, in hopes of reviving her modeling career. Kelsey's excessive spending and partying lifestyle led to her neglecting her children. This eventually led to her ex-husband, who had won sole custody of their daughter through the courts, stripping Kelsey of her parental rights. As a result, Kelsey was left with only her youngest son. Thomas was furious when he discovered the situation, but his anger was directed at Kelsey, not at her ex-husband. It was clear that Kelsey had neglected her children and was using the money meant for their care to support her lavish lifestyle. Dr. Thomas decided to address the issue with Kelsey, informing her that he would no longer support her lavish and idle lifestyle. However, Kelsey responded by threatening to spread false rumors that Dr. Thomas had inappropriate feelings for his young patients. Although he knew this was a lie, Dr. Thomas realized that any further rumors about the matter could seriously damage his reputation as a respected pediatric psychiatrist and scholar. Faced with this threat, Dr. Burchard reluctantly gave in to Kelsey's demands and continued to support her financially. In 2019, Kelsey moved to Las Vegas with her son to try to revive her modeling career, and she expected Thomas, whom she was blackmailing, to fund the effort. As instructed, Thomas rented a house for her and provided the requested funds. However, after receiving the financial support, Kelsey disappeared for 2 months and her whereabouts were unknown. Later that year, in February, Kelsey reappeared, contacting Thomas in an emotional state, saying that she was seriously ill, unable to work, and in dire financial straits. When Thomas refused to help, Kelsey's attitude changed completely and she continued to threaten and blackmail him. Judy, who was close to Thomas, advised him to report Kelsey's behavior to the police and contact Child Protective Services, due to concerns about Kelsey's ability to care for her younger son, especially since she had previously lost parental rights to her older daughter. Dr. Thomas took steps to prepare in case the conflict with Kelsey escalated in court. He informed his colleagues of the situation, and they agreed to support him. Judy had previously attempted to resolve the issue by speaking directly with Kelsey. Unfortunately, her efforts only resulted in Kelsey threatening retaliation. Thomas decided to travel to Las Vegas to verify Kelsey's claims. Judy tried to dissuade Thomas, but he was adamant about traveling to Las Vegas to meet with Kelsey. Judy also offered to accompany him as a friend for support, but Dr. Thomas insisted on handling the matter himself. He finally set off on March 1, 2019. On the morning of March 7, a group of tourists got lost while traveling through Nevada. While trying to get to Lake Mead, they took a dirt road off the main highway. They came across a Mercedes-Benz convertible parked in the desert. The roof was closed and the windows were rolled up, but unusually, there was no one around the car. Intrigued, the tourists cautiously approached the car and saw that one of the windows was broken. Upon further investigation, they looked inside and saw signs of a struggle. There were blood stains all over the interior. The tourists quickly contacted the police to report their shocking discovery. Police arrived at the scene around noon and discovered an unbearable stench. The source of the smell was quickly identified when police opened the trunk. Inside, they found the body of an elderly man hidden under a pile of furniture and rags. Beside him was a blood-stained baseball bat. The victim was later identified as Dr. Thomas, who had been missing for 5 days. Judy reported Dr. Thomas missing on March 2 when she was unable to reach him at their scheduled meeting time. She immediately suspected something terrible had happened and contacted the police, hoping he would be found alive. The autopsy revealed numerous serious injuries to Thomas's body. These included scratches, bruises, and superficial cuts, as well as a severe head injury that may have been caused by a baseball bat found in the trunk of the car next to him. Part of his ear was severed, and his hands had multiple cuts that suggested a desperate attempt to defend himself. Thomas's face also had noticeable bruises with a unique printed pattern. Most shocking was the evidence that the man had been placed in the trunk of the car while still alive and injured, eventually suffocating from the intense desert heat. The investigation focused on Kelsey Turner as the prime suspect, as the car at the crime scene had been rented under her name. Judy had provided the police with Kelsey's address, which matched the location Dr. Thomas had visited. However, when the police arrived at the scene, they found the house empty. Although no one was there, the house showed signs of a hasty cleanup. Containers of cleaning products were scattered throughout the house and the air smelled strongly of household chemicals, suggesting that someone had tried to erase any evidence of the crime. The house was occupied by Kelsey, her 4-year-old son, and her new boyfriend, John Logan Kennison, along with 2 neighbors, Diana Pina and Jeremy Eric. All had fled, making them suspects, as Kelsey could not have inflicted such injuries on the doctor or placed his body in the trunk of her car herself. Jeremy Eric was the only person the police interviewed. He explained that he and his girlfriend had left Kelsey's house while the doctor was still alive. According to Jeremy, his girlfriend had been drinking heavily and began flirting with Thomas, trying to extort money from him, similar to Kelsey's tactics. This made Kelsey extremely angry, as she accused Jeremy's girlfriend of trying to steal Thomas from her. The situation became worse, and Jeremy had to quickly move his girlfriend out of the house to avoid a fight. He did not return for several days and was unaware of what had happened after he left. During the investigation, the police learned from Judy that Dr. Thomas kept a notebook with his bank account information and passwords, which he frequently lost. When they searched, they discovered that the notebook was missing. Furthermore, 2 of Dr. Thomas's accounts showed significant withdrawals on March 3, after which Thomas's accounts and cards were immediately closed. On March 21, in Stockton, California, police arrested Kelsey and her boyfriend for attempting to withdraw money again. It was later discovered that the couple had stayed in various motels with a child, paid in cash, and moved frequently. They initially attempted to drain all of Thomas's accounts but were unsuccessful. They then attempted to withdraw more money with the intention of fleeing to Mexico but were prevented by the accounts being closed. Diana, a neighbor who was at Kelsey's home that night, cooperated with police and shared her account of what happened on the night of March 7th. According to her, the trouble began after Jeremy and his girlfriend left. Kelsey had a heated argument with Dr. Thomas, who refused to give her money. Kelsey threatened to ruin the doctor's reputation by spreading rumors about his misconduct with young patients. As the argument escalated, Kelsey became aggressive. Dr. Thomas, feeling threatened, locked himself in his room. However, John broke the door open with a strong shoulder thrust and then hit Thomas hard with a baseball bat. This caused a serious injury, resulting in a large hematoma and a nosebleed. Diana rushed in, pleading with everyone to calm down. Seeing Thomas's condition, she urged them to take him to the hospital, fearing the consequences of their actions. After hearing Thomas say that he would tell the police that he had been attacked and robbed by strangers, the four drove to the garage. Diana was ordered by Kelsey to return to the house and clean up, removing all traces of blood. Diana followed the instructions and began cleaning, but soon heard screams and a struggle coming from the garage. She rushed back to find the couple brutally attacking Dr. Thomas in the car. The doctor was trapped and unable to escape or defend himself. It became clear that Kelsey and John had no intention of taking Thomas to the hospital. Instead, they planned to kill him with a baseball bat, a small knife, and John's empty pistol, leaving bruises on the doctor's face. Diana was instructed to return to the house and continue cleaning. Fearing for her safety, she complied and left the garage. While Diana was still cleaning, she heard the couple's car drive away. Several hours later, John's car returned with Kelsey, but the other car, a convertible, was nowhere to be seen. Diana remained unaware of the convertible's location until she heard about a car found in the desert with a body in the trunk. Diana chose to cooperate with the police from the start by agreeing to a plea deal and sharing all relevant information she knew. This decision resulted in a reduced sentence for tampering with evidence, serving just 3 years in prison. John Logan Kennison was convicted of murder and sentenced to 45 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 years. Kelsey Turner's trial was more complicated. After her arrest, she announced that she was pregnant, causing significant delays in the trial. While in custody, she gave birth to a baby girl who, along with her son, was placed under the protection of social services, as none of Kelsey's relatives were willing to take on the responsibility. Kelsey Turner was sentenced to 25 years in prison in January 2023, with the possibility of parole after serving at least 10 years. She is currently serving her sentence at the Florence McClure Correctional Center for Women in Las Vegas.